In my last video on the Monogatari series, I briefly went over some of the things that make it stylistically unique. If you want to watch the last one, I'll put a link in the description. In this video, I want to focus on the second arc and some aspects that it introduced. Particularly, I would like to focus on explaining how the anime makes its dialogue so entertaining. Mayoi Maimai is pretty much 100% dialogue, and yet it manages to be a really entertaining arc to watch, and I want to explain some of the reasons why that is. So let's get into it. Firstly, the locations showcased in the arc are a treat to the eyes. In my opinion, the park is one of the most iconic scenes in the series, and that's for good reason. The park and its play equipment are huge, and the apartment complex in the back is seemingly repetitive and never-ending. Yet at the same time, the place feels really empty. There's a lot of empty space between various objects. This is going to sound a bit subjective, but the park kind of feels like what you'd imagine in your head while actually reading the book. In the sense that your brain can kind of make a mental image of all the defining features of the park, but it can't really fill in the fine details. This makes the park feel like it's in a dream or in some kind of trance-like area. This liminal feel the environment has is explored during some of the long shots showcased in the arc. The arc is jam-packed full of dialogue, so many breaks are taken to showcase far shots while the characters converse. I really like what they did with the foreground elements in these shots. There's plenty of metal beams flying in front of the camera, giving the sense that the camera is sort of moving through the park as we watch. These beams even appear in a couple closer shots. In addition to that, we also get to watch some action during dialogue. During one of their conversations, Araragi and Senjo Gahara move between various play structures while talking. The cool part about this scene is that the conversation is always the main focus, and what's happening on screen is secondary to that. I feel like this scene strikes a really good balance between prioritizing dialogue while also giving the viewers something fun to look at as the dialogue happens. When our characters start traveling through the city, the liminal feel is played up even more. There's not a single person to be seen, and some of the structures are repetitive or plain. These scenes get overly bright and foggy as if it's in some kind of dream world. This is used even more when they get lost, and it makes the viewer notice that something is amiss before the characters even do themselves. I showed some of these in my last video, but couldn't get over how cool they were. Most of the Blu-ray fixes were beneficial to the anime, but I really wish they kept some of the photos. I'll just let cinema play in the background as I'm saying this, so take my time. I really do like what they did with the redraws, since they do a pretty good job of capturing that liminal feel that the original photos had. In some longer conversations, Shaft has used some more mixed media. When Araragi is explaining his fight with his sister that morning, for example, he's represented by the kanji for his given name, and his sister is represented by the kanji for fire, since she's part of the Fire Sisters. Or when Senjo Gahara is explaining how Sorokan works, there's an entire graph showing how the family tree would work out in a situation like that. One of my favorite pieces of mixed media from the series as a whole, but especially this arc, is Hachikuji's backstory. It looks stylistically amazing and showcases a really uncanny vibe. Before even what goes wrong, you can kind of tell that something's a little up. It's kind of creepy in a certain way, right? In a little bit of an uncanny valley type area, I guess I would say. And finally, the more suspenseful scenes where reveals are made are directed in a very unique way. Consider the first one, where Senjo Gahara is teasing Araragi. It's pretty clear by her demeanor that she's the one leading the conversation. She's very calm and collected, while Araragi is a little more on edge. Additionally, as the tension rises, so does the tension in the music, and we get a closer zoom in on her face. There's also the scene where Araragi and Senjo Gahara realize something's wrong after her GPS doesn't work. We get some Dutch angles, and these kind of emphasize the fact that something is wrong, or something is not normal. We get some camera tilt, right? Additionally, we get a shot from the ground up, showing clouds passing quickly overhead as if they're trapped in some kind of place that's disconnected from the world. Once again, we get a build-up during the dialogue, where the music and zoom work in tandem with the tension. One of my favorite instances of this directing style during this arc is the scene where Araragi realizes why Senjo Gahara has been keeping information from him. The pan goes up her body and she seems to be keeping her cool, but as we go up we slowly realize that that's not really the case. She's holding her arms in a kind of stressed manner, and when we finally get to her face, we kind of see that she's struggling to keep her expression neutral. And right afterwards, when Araragi decides to help Hashikuji, the jump cuts do a great job of emphasizing how stressful his back and forth with Senjogahara is. The combination of all these things allows for the anime to be so dialogue heavy while also being visually appealing. Despite being essentially completely dialogue for this arc, I always find myself returning to this one because of how well written the back and forth is, alongside the aspects of the series that I discussed in this video. I actually recently read Saudachi Fiasco, which is the first arc that happens after the end of the anime, and I'm really looking forward to how they animate this one, if they end up actually doing it, since it's pretty much like 95% internal monologue. It's going to be really interesting to see how they do it. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm thinking about maybe doing another one of these on Owari Monogatari 1, because it is definitely my favorite arc in the entire series. But let me know if you'd be interested in that, or maybe in another arc. I know all of them kind of are unique in their own ways, and I would like the chance to get to talk about them. Anyways, thanks for watching, peace out, and see you later, Space Cowboy.